Well, actually, in this sector, in our sector, we're below 1990 emission levels, which is itself a remarkable fact. The latest figures from the EPA show that we're 3.5% below where we were in 1990, whereas the transport sector is 140% above where it was in 1990. And the energy sector is 9.5% above where it was in 1990. So, of the three big sectors, we're doing least bad, if you like. That's what I would say. Look, the question that you ask is in fact one of the biggest global challenges in the world today. How do we produce 50% more food by 2050? That's the usual figure that's out there from FAO, while reducing our burden on the natural resource base. Mm-hmm. It is the biggest global challenge, and it's intimately linked in with climate change and with hunger. So we're at the front end of that because in our country, because we don't have a lot of dirty industry, greenhouse gas emissions from the agriculture sector are a large proportion of our total emissions. They're a third of our total emissions. So the issue that we're dealing with now and struggling with, every country, and I mean every country, will struggle with in the future. I talk to my German colleagues. Agriculture there only accounts for about 5% of their emissions. But of course, as they squeeze their emissions from energy and industry, the agriculture share will go up. So they will have to address the problems that we're addressing now. We happen to be in the forefront of them. But as I've said in my earlier intervention, there is a real intent and seriousness in the sector behind this. And one of the purposes of today's conference was to reinforce that, to be quite honest with you, to get the sector talking among itself about what we need to do to meet, in particular, the climate change targets coming up for 2030, which are very ambitious, and every sector will have to contribute to it, including ours.
Because there are many in the environmental sector who believe that some of the aims, as we heard, people who believe that so long as we go on eating meat, do you know what I mean? You're not going to be doing that much for the environment in the long run. I'm sure that's music to the ears of an awful lot of people in this room, not because their livelihoods are so caught up in that. So what you're saying is you're serious about trying to make both things happen at the same time. You think it's doable?
We think it's doable, but more than that, we think we have no choice. Globally and nationally, we have absolutely no choice but to make these two things happen. So we have to find the means and the ways to do it. And I agree with Charles. I mean, more and more people will turn to veganism or vegetarianism or whatever if we don't have a persuasive answer to this. Now, as it happens, meat and dairy consumption globally are actually rising by 2 or 3% a year. As Joe Glober showed, as population increases and as people get wealthier, they look for better food. So, the demand is there and it's very clear. But we have to meet that demand in a way that's persuasively sustainable. And climate change is one of the biggest challenges in that respect.